Maybe you've noticed that being nice isn't actually getting you the relationship or the sex life that you truly want. But you are not about to be one of those jerks, one of those fuckboys that is out there. In this episode, we are diving into nice guy syndrome, a pattern that may be keeping you stuck in unfulfilling relationships, struggling with your sexuality, and being really disconnected from who you truly can be. If you're thinking, that is not me, you might be surprised by what you discover in this episode. Welcome back to The Naked Connection. This is the show that supports driven men to reach sexual mastery and build deep connections. Take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. It's Kirsten, and today we are joined by Dr. Robert Glover. Dr. Robert is the author of the groundbreaking book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. He has over 40 years of experience helping men transform their relationships. Dr. Glover is here to share why being nice is actually sabotaging your sex life. He is going to share how to break free from patterns that really are keeping you stuck from getting what it is that you want in love and in sex. And he's going to share what actually creates the kind of connection and desire that women truly crave. When he shared this 3-part formula for what women want, I could not help but say yes. So, you are about to discover why trying to do everything right is actually doing everything wrong for you, how to stop seeking approval and start being real. And you are going to learn specific ways to step into your authentic power without being a jerk. So, you guys, let's get some. Dr. Robert Glover, welcome to The Naked Connection.
Thanks for the invite. Any interview that has naked in the title's got to be good. We'll have fun no matter where we go with this.
Okay, hopefully we can stand up to that title. Um, well, I want to kick things off right away because I know that you are such an expert in looking at what has been coined the nice guy syndrome. And so, for someone that might be tuning in and they're thinking, this probably isn't related to me, but maybe it actually is, can you share what are some of the top signs that a man might actually be falling into this nice guy trap, even if he thinks he's being a good partner, being a good boyfriend, a good dating potential?
Yeah, even if they think of themselves as being good at any of those things, they may already be a nice guy, the way I define it. Let me give you the quick elevator definition of a nice guy. I
Perfect.
define a nice guy as a man who typically at a very early age inaccurately internalized an emotional belief that he's not okay just as he is.
Mm.
And then he started trying to do two things. Again, starting at a few weeks old, few months old, few years old, carrying into adolescence, adulthood. But the two things a nice guy's always trying to do is number one, become what he thinks other people want him to be, so to be liked and loved and get his needs met.
Mm.
Second thing is hide anything about themselves that might get a negative reaction, that might get
Mm.
them punished, abandoned, rejected, scolded, shamed. So nice guys basically are inauthentic. They're chameleons.
Mm.
If I was in nice guy mode talking to you, every time you nodded or looked interested or smiled, I go, good, I'm doing it right. There, I got the smile. I got the big, beautiful, I got the laugh. I'm doing good, right? Everything would be measured by the person's response. But then if I got a little bit of a frown from you, a scold, maybe you're cocked your head like you're, huh? I go, oh, maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. Yeah, I won't say that one again, or I'll smooth that one over and make it sound like it's something different.
Mhm.
Most nice guys are that way in pretty much all interactions with life. They're that way with family, they're that way with coworkers, on the job, with friends, and especially in our intimate relationships, whether it be women we want to get to like us or women who we're with who we want to keep them liking us over
Mhm.
time. Where we're
Mm.
constantly kind of licking the finger, holding it up, see which way the wind is blowing. Am I doing it right? Did I do it wrong? Often nice guys would come in and say, Robert, I guess I did that wrong. And I go, what do you mean? Oh, she totally blew up or she had this bad reaction. And I said, well, if she responded, would it have been the right thing to do? So again, there's this
Mm.
external measure of everything we do. And if we seem to be getting approval, uh, People seem to, if we're going along to get along and everything seems smooth, we're doing it right. When they
Mm,
aren't going so smooth, I must have done something wrong. I got to figure out a different strategy to get things back to smooth and keep everything copacetic.
mm,
So as a result of nice guys being so inauthentic, early in the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, I dive into what's wrong with being a nice guy because
yes.
we would think a nice guy is a good thing, right? And I know people at times. One thing about the title is intentionally paradoxical. I'm sure people look at the book and look at the title and go, "No more Mr. Nice Guy. Why would someone write a book teaching men to be not nice? There's
Yeah.
already enough not nice guys out there." But of course, it's paradoxical. Probably every one of us, men or women, have said, "No more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm drawing the line there. I'm not taking it anymore. I'm not putting up with that." So we've all said it, or maybe sang
Mhm.
along with Alice Cooper or whatever. But to really look at, okay, nice guys are people that really have this roadmap. There's this paradigm that if I'm just nice enough, basically not me enough, I'll be liked and loved and get my needs met, and nothing bad will happen to me. So we're not honest. We're not clear or direct. We don't ask for what we want. We don't have boundaries. We're passive aggressive. Um, we, again, go along to get along, can't make a
Mhm.
decision, maybe make a decision for one person and reverse it for another person. And it's really challenging to be in a relationship with a nice guy. And I'm a recovering nice guy. And I promise you, when my second wife about 30 something years ago said to me, "Everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. You need to go get help. I can't trust you. I can't depend on you. You're passive aggressive. You lie to me. You hide things. You embarrass me in public. You cut me down." She said, "I'd rather be with an asshole. At least I know an asshole is going to be consistently the same way. You treat me well, and then you treat me badly, and I don't know when it's coming."
Yeah.
So I was that personification of all those negative traits of a nice guy. And I even remember thinking, why do I need to go to therapy? Why do I need to get help? You're the one
Mm.
that's unhappy all the time. You're in a bad mood all the time. I give to you all the time. I try to make you happy. You never want to have sex anymore. And I thought, okay, fine. I didn't want to lose her. So I went to therapy. And it was one of
Mm.
the best things I've ever done. We're not
Mm.
married anymore, but I'm so grateful that she said, "I'm going to leave you if you don't go get some help." Because it got me into a place where I started both in a 12-step group and then a therapist and then a men's group, where I really started exploring those nice guy patterns of
Mhm.
me giving to get, that I call covert contracts, me trying to please, me avoiding conflict, me hiding anything that I thought might upset anybody, me not making my needs a priority, not having boundaries. So all of that began to change when I went to go work on me. And then I was
Mm.
a marriage and family therapist, and I started noticing guys coming to me for therapy with their wives or girlfriends. They were saying the same thing I was. "I'm a nice guy. I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. They go to a private school. I buy her whatever car she wants. I get the leather interior. I give. It's never enough. When's it going to be my turn?" She's mad all the time, and she never wants to have sex anymore. I thought, I'm not the only one. We're all
Yeah.
married to the same woman. But the thing was, we were all creating a similar dynamic
Yeah.
with the people in our lives through our nice guy paradigm.
Mm, mm. Yeah, okay. There's so much in this. And so I'm wondering for you, you had this experience where you go to therapy, not because you're like, oh, I have problems, but because basically you're trying to be
I went
nice
to make her
and
happy. I was being a nice guy.
you
Oh, all right, that'll make her happy. I'll go.
yeah, yeah. So you're going to therapy to make her happy. And in that experience, when did you uncover or really actually start to recognize what was it that landed for you to say, oh, I might actually have some things here going on?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like there's a lot of unconscious, not being aware perhaps of the cycle that's being created.
Yeah. And that's the thing with nice guys. And that's such a good point. We're not aware. We actually think we're doing it right because often we're trying to be different from our fathers who are absent, distant, workaholics, alcoholics, abusive, narcissistic, whatever. My
Yeah.
mother raised, when she told me as a child, "I'm raising my sons to be different from their father." I thought that was a good thing, to be different from my father. I grew
Mm.
up in a fundamental Christian church. You got to do everything, don't make mistakes, don't mess up. Mainly hide everything. This is what you actually do.
Yeah.
I grew up during the angry feminism of the 60s and 70s that, every man's a rapist and erection's a sign of aggression. I listen to women complain, men only want one thing. They're all jerks. So I don't want to be that guy. So I thought that was a good thing. I thought, why doesn't everybody else try to not be that guy? Why didn't
Mhm.
everybody else try to be a good man, thinking that would get the approval that I
Mhm.
was seeking? And that's really all that it was. Nice guy syndrome is basically a constant seeking of external validation. If I
Mhm.
can get other people to approve of me and like me, it proves I'm okay. Because inside, I have that what's called toxic shame, that belief that I'm not good enough. I'm not okay. I'm not lovable. I have to be different than what I am. Now, again,
Mhm.
that's an inaccurately internalized belief that comes very early in life. So, two things really stand out early in my work as a nice guy. Like I said, I was going to this 12-step group for sexual addiction. I had a therapist. And one of the things is that I had this really dark sexual impulse come up on occasion. And it really scared me and the part of me before I'd started doing any work on myself, I don't know, maybe I kept all that stuff repressed and it wouldn't have even come into conscious awareness. And I didn't act on this impulse, but it scared me enough to think, wow, I can't believe I even thought about doing that. So I went to my 12-step group, again, like 6 o'clock in the morning, and told them. And the strongest reaction I got was, thank you for sharing, Robert. Phew, I wasn't bad. Nobody reacted, nothing. So I went to my therapist. I had an appointment like an hour later. And I told her the same thing. I had this dark sexual impulse. And she just kind of looks at me with kind eyes and says, let's explore what that's about. And
Mhm.
she didn't have a negative reaction. So I'm driving home and I'm thinking, okay, I'm batting 1,000. Nobody's reacted negatively to this horrible thought that I had. And I thought, I need to go tell my wife. And I often told my wife when I was married to her, I said, your middle name ought to be overreact because that's what you do in every situation. And she never overreacted to that because she knew it was true. So
Mhm.
anyway, I'm driving home thinking if she has a bad reaction to it, I'm still batting 666. So I'm not doing bad. So I got home and I took her into the bedroom and I said, I need to tell you something. I said, I already talked about this in my 12-step group, already talked to my therapist about it. And then I told her what this dark sexual impulse was. And to my surprise, she kind of stayed pretty calm. And
Mhm.
she said, that kind of scares me. And she says, it doesn't surprise me. And I'm glad you talked about it in your group and with your therapist. And I'm glad you told me. And
Mhm.
she never brought it up again. I'm thinking, wow, this was easy. How come no one told me this a long time ago? Just tell the truth. Just
Yeah.
be who you are. And it's okay. It's all right. And that really kind of give you a fast forward a little bit. In No More Mr. Nice Guy, when I talk about being an integrated man, that's really what I'm talking about. It's being able to integrate all aspects of ourselves, our dark and our light, our
Mhm.
spiritual and our material, the things that we want people to see and the things we don't want them to see. How do we bring that all together where
Mhm.
we can look at them and they're not down in the shadows, they're not seeping out in indirect, kind of unconscious ways, but they're up here right in front. And now
Mhm.
we can make conscious decisions about what to do with this. So there's that need to be able to be vulnerable and share that with safe people. So
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
was really powerful, me learning, oh, this is what it feels like to release toxic shame, to release this thing that I'm bad or I have bad thoughts or I can do bad things. And really realize, no, I'm okay. And
Yeah.
it's safer if I actually talk about it. So
Mhm.
that was really powerful.
Mm.
A second thing is I mentioned that therapist that I was working with. And I remember the very first session I went to see her. She says, let's talk about boundaries. And she gets a string out, puts it on the ground, and does this little demonstration of boundaries and space. And I was in my 30s, like I said, already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. In my second marriage, I'd never heard of boundaries before. I didn't even know
Mm.
what boundaries were. I didn't know you could say, no, yes, stop, go away. If you ever do that again, we're done. I'm getting off the phone now. I didn't know you could do those things. I thought you just had to put up with and tolerate whatever people did until they were done doing it, or you could get them to quit or talk them down or through or over or whatever. I did not know you could set boundaries. And that, again, was so powerful and liberating to me that to realize I'm an adult. I've got to say so in my life. I
Mm.
don't have to let people treat me badly. I don't have to let them do whatever they want to do just because that's what they want to do. And so that was another really powerful thing
Mm.
in my own beginning to develop this more integrated an authentic way of being myself rather than this
Yeah.
self that thought I had to get everybody's approval and hide anything that might get their disapproval.
Hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing these two pieces. And it's interesting because in hearing this and in having similar, like receiving experiences of this type of dynamic, that on the surface, it can, I imagine it seems, oh, I'd rather it be something, share something nice, even if it's not true, versus share this like dark sexual desire that I have and that be true, but like dark. And in reality, I think at least this is true and you can trust it. Whereas this, maybe it
Yeah.
sounds nice, but underneath there's this, what's really going on? What's real? And that
Yeah.
confusion and that curiosity is really unsettling to be on the receiving end of. At least that's
My,
what I experience of
uh,
it.
yeah, and in my experience, both working with women as a therapist and being in relationship,
Hmm.
is that number one, I tell men all the time that women can handle an uncomfortable truth. They just can't handle being lied to. And they seem to have a sense of when they're not getting honest, truthful, authentic messages. Women seem pretty, maybe because they've been lied to a lot, or maybe the feminine is more intuitive and has a greater sense of empathic ability. But again, going back to my ex-wife, I'd be lying to her at times. I knew I was lying to her. And she'd go, "You're lying to me. The truth is blah, 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 blah." And I'm
Mm,
going, "She's wrong. She's right. She's wrong. I'm lying to her, but she's wrong about the truth."
mm,
And so that gave me this justifiable defense to say, "No, you're wrong." Even though I was lying to her. And so
yeah.
here's the thing, for many women, when they get the incongruent message,
Hmm.
you got to fill in the blanks, and you've got to create almost the worst possible scenario for what that incongruent message is to be prepared for what might be true. And I'll tell
Hmm.
guys, it could be as simple as you're driving down the road and you got gas and you think it might be really bad and you're trying not to pass the gas. Or you're driving holding it in. If your woman's with you, she knows something's going on. What?
Mm.
What? And she just knows something's incongruent, but doesn't know what. And then she goes, "Oh, I know what it was. He's still thinking about that woman's boobs on the corner that we just drove by. And he's probably going to drive and circle by again because he's thinking about her boobs." Now,
Mm.
she's wrong. Now, she knows something is incongruent,
Hmm.
but she doesn't know what. And I tell you what, if we people, but I primarily work with men now, I said, if you
Hmm.
can just get congruent,
Hmm.
it'll let women feel safe with you. They'll trust you. They may still project some of their own fears and anxieties and that worst possible scenario on you if they sense something that doesn't feel true. But by showing up in these congruent ways, it lets a woman trust you and open to you. And once a woman's ready to open to a man can take her all kinds of interesting places that she can't take
Hmm.
herself. And I think that's what most women are really looking for in a relationship with a guy. Take me
Hmm.
places I can't take myself. Take me places I've
Hmm.
not been. I'm not talking about a vacation to Rome.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the deeper energetic and sexual places that we can take a woman. And then even add another component to this. I'm I've been in a men's program with a coach for probably out in the program 2018. And one thing that this coach does, and so each year we repeat some of the units that he takes us through, is he does something called, oh, my mind just went blank,
Oh,
but
when that
it'll come
happens.
back to me. But it's sexual. It's sexual. That's why my mind went blank on this. So we have to actually write out a sexual fantasy. And not, he said, not just a fantasy, we have to write out something kind of from down in the darkness, down in the shadows. He said it needs to both arouse you and repulse you at the same time.
Mm.
Okay. And so we would do that. And he's had different ways of us presenting this at times. Sometimes we just presented it to everybody, either on a virtual call or online. Sometimes he'll have us act it out, just kind of pantomime it almost. And taboo, that's what he calls it,
Mm.
taboo. And so it can't just be, oh, I've got this fantasy about three cheerleaders. It's gotta, like I said, gotta have repulse. It's gotta just, oh, I can't tell anybody this. It's too bad. That's the point. He wants us to bring what's down in the shadows,
Hmm.
bring it out in the open. Again, so now we can integrate it. It's been
Mm.
seen, it's in the light. And every year I've done that, I've taken the essence of my taboo. And some were illegal in most places.
Mm-hmm.
And basically gave my wife the juicy part of what my taboo was, the essence of it. And because my wife, Lupita, we've been married 8 years now, she just got the dirtiest, nastiest mind. And so if I give her some of that taboo that I've got, she'll take it and turn it into a fantasy that she'll tell me a story about it while we're being sexual. And she's even taken it and tried to take us places where we could actually act it out in real life. And so the point is making, going back to that dark sexual impulse that I used to always keep inside, by letting this stuff come up and us embrace it and get comfortable with it and release the shame around it, it can actually be, some nice fuel and energy and something playful we bring to a partner that, we can decide, how do we want to play with this energy? How do we want to play with this story? It may
Yeah.
just be keep it a story. It may be we could go do this.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you're keeping all that back, you're robbing your partner in the relationship of this really juicy
Mm.
sexual.
I'm wondering if someone's listening and they're thinking, okay, maybe some of this is aligning with me. I don't really want to admit it, but I do kind of live my life trying to get that approval, and I'm constantly checking people's emotional temperature to make sure that they're okay so that I can be okay, or that they're just making sure that the women that they're around are interested in them and getting the positive affirmations back from them, whatever
Yeah,
they're starting to pick up on. Because you did mention this piece about going to the AA for sex addiction, and I'm wondering just
right.
how does this dynamic generally show up for a man in his sex life if he is really embodying this kind of nice guy
Hmm.
demeanor? I know there's a few ways that this can show up, I imagine.
Yeah, a lot of ways. And I talk about it quite a bit in No More Mr. Nice Guy, the book.
Mm.
One of the things I say in the book is that I'd say that probably at least 80% of the nice guys I've worked with have some manifestation of sexual issues. It might be, and I'm not a big fan of terms like ED or premature
Mm.
ejaculation, because it almost like it puts a person in a box and say, oh, I have ED,
Yeah.
or I'm a premature ejaculator, or even saying I'm an insomniac. Now, every time you wake up at night, oh, it's my insomnia. No, maybe you just woke up at night. That's all that it is, right? But most men I work with do struggle with things like the not being able to get an erection, keep an erection, coming too quickly, not being able to come at all. Many have issues around porn, hidden secretive porn issues. Many are very passive and indirect sexually with women and kind of wait for the woman to make the move or
Mm.
take the lead. A couple of terms I coined and used in No More Mr. Nice Guy. One is I call it being monogamous to mom, monogamous to our mother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we got emotionally, for lack of probably the best term is emotionally incested by our mothers. Maybe it wasn't overtly sexual, but where we were supposed to be there taking care of our mother and being there for her. It creates this unhealthy emotional bond. And there's a line, probably most of your listeners have probably seen the movie Fight Club. The book is written by Chuck Palahniuk, and just such a great movie for men feeling lost and disconnected. And Chuck Palahniuk's written several books, and another one he wrote is called Choke. It was made into a movie as well. And this is about a guy that basically is underperforming in life in many ways. And his mother was mentally ill and told him he was born of immaculate conception. And he grew up his whole life kind of taking care of his crazy mom. And he loved his mother, but he knew she was mentally ill. And he says, when your mother is your first spouse, every other woman feels like a mistress. Every woman after
Mm.
that feels like a mistress. And he says, what can you do? You can't divorce them and you can't kill them. And so he's making that point of that monogamous bond to mother. If we have to go, if we have to be there for mom, be her little man, be her surrogate partner, sacrifice ourselves to every other woman feels like a mistress, meaning we'll find ways to be faithful and monogamous to our mother. We'll pick unavailable women, or we won't date at all, or we'll pick relationships with that are traumatic, might even be gay. Anything that doesn't threaten the bond to mother. And
Mm.
so that's a real common dynamic around relationship and sexuality that is really hard to get, put your finger on it because how do you know you're monogamous to mom? How do you know you were espoused by your mother? How do you know that's playing out in the kind of women you choose or the fact that you don't talk to women at all or when you show up sexually, you're bringing what might be called the Madonna whore, that you only bring your dark sexual energy to what the archetype of the whore, the prostitutes, the streetwalkers, the women in porn. And to the good women, the mommy type archetype, we repress all of that sexual energy and bring the nice boy energy. Approve of me, like me. I won't do anything that will offend you. So it can play out in that way. Another way it
Mm.
plays out is a term I call vagophobia, where nice guys actually get really creative at either finding ways to avoid putting their penis in vaginas or get them out quickly once they're in there. And Freud actually talked about this, about vaginas having teeth in terms of at least how men view them. He said, men fear vaginas because they can make us hard and they can take it, they make us erect and take away our erection. So and so Freud probably wasn't that far off. Men are pretty insecure about the power of the vagina. Again, maybe that ED, I just won't get an erection and put it in, or I just won't talk to women, or I'll just spend all my time masturbating to fantasy or to pornography, or if I put my penis in a vagina, I'll come real quickly and get out as quickly as possible. Again, all of this is really unconscious kind of stuff. But if your listeners are listening to this going, my sexual relationships do kind of either are non-existent or are kind of boring and bland or are kind of messy.
Mm.
And maybe it's because we are disconnected and not claiming the depth of who we are as sexual beings. And
Mhm.
maybe it's wrapped in shame, maybe it's wrapped in beliefs and stories we heard as children. I grew up fundamental Christian. Messages I got about sex were sex is evil, dirty, and sinful. Save it for the one you love. And
Mhm.
how do you then find somebody you love and turn off that programming and go, now everything's going to be great because I found the one I loved. Everything's going to work perfectly.
Yeah.
And she's got the stuff that just messes with our sexuality. And in Western culture, I think probably worldwide culture, we're
Mhm.
bombarded with sexual stimuli. It's in television and movies and commercials and songs and books and media and social media and internet. Sexual stimuli everywhere, but we still get these messages that sex is dirty, sex is bad. We still arrest prostitutes and put men on billboards that go to prostitutes. Where's all that coming from? Sex is bad, sex is evil. And we're all struggling with those dynamics. And oftentimes in my workshops, I'll ask the guys, all right, think about your first sexual memory, whatever that might have been. Maybe it was your first erection, your first wet dream, maybe the first kiss you had, maybe the first I'll show you mine, you show me yours with the neighbor. Maybe it was your first abuse, right? But I'll ask guys, think about it, just bring it up. And I said, now let me ask you a question. Did it happen in the open? Could you talk about it? Could you go tell your parents it happened? And they'd say, that's fantastic. Let's go get pizza. That's an important developmental sexual milestone. Or was it hidden, secretive, guilt ridden, shame ridden, in the dark? And 100% of the time, that's what people raise their hand to. No, I couldn't go tell anybody what happened. No, I had shame about it. No, I was afraid. No, I knew it was wrong or it was abusive, but I was aroused. It's all these mixed things. And then what happens to us, all of us, pretty much all of us,
Mhm.
get our sex drive cross-wired with guilt, shame, hidden, dark. It's bad. Don't go there. But sex drive is such a powerful thing. We're still going to go there one way or another. So all
Mhm.
of this stuff gets mixed in, not just for nice guys, but men, women, just culturally. But
Yeah.
nice guys really carry a super heavy dose of all that sexual messiness.
Yeah. In one regard, there's this part of me that's some of these things are really hard pills to swallow to sit, acknowledge or have awareness or admit to, oh, I actually feel like I have had this relationship with my mom that has maybe kind of held me back from really being able to actually commit with intimately being with someone else. That would be a really hard thing to even admit to.
Well,
And,
and
and,
see,
and
it's even a hard one. How do you connect the dots to it?
yeah, yeah.
That's, that's it's challenging. I know that.
Yeah, and the way that for everyone listening, like your book is incredible, and the way that you described it, I really was able to see that in some of the men that I know and understanding their dynamics with their mothers and how loving and caring they were for them and how that can kind of sneak into other relationship dynamics and so there's just so much shame and guilt and a lot of emotion that wraps up into this whole experience. And I'm wondering Let's say that someone is kind of fighting this. Maybe they are having some resistance to acknowledging some pieces that might fit for them. And they're stuck in this place of, you kind of mentioned it earlier, of I don't want to stop being a nice person. I don't want to
Sure.
be a jerk. It's so then who are you? Who do you become? If you're not going to be a nice guy, but you're not going to be an asshole, where are we sending these men?
That's the perfect question because that's the question I think pretty much everybody has. I'm not
Mm.
a nice guy. And guys will tell me, Robert, okay, I've read your book or I've listened to some interviews and I get that being a nice guy doesn't work. And they'll go, I don't want to be the jerk over here either. I don't want to be like my dad or I don't want to be like those men that abuse or violate women. And they'll go, where's the balance? And I'll
Mhm.
go, there isn't one. There's not a tipping point between two toxic extremes.
Mhm.
And so trying to find a balance, that's what most nice guys do. Maybe most men do it. Let me just find, like they'll say moderation in all things. I go, you don't really believe that. Like it's rat poison in moderation. No, probably not. And so the problem is the way I define it. If you got the nice guy over here, I don't know if my hands are showing up on
Mhm.
the screen or not. Nice guy over here, asshole jerk over here, right? I think both are actually on the same continuum of what I'll call the fight, flight, freeze, or fight, flight, freeze, fawn
Mhm.
reaction. It's all
Yeah.
sympathetic nervous system. It's all anxiety, shame driven. And what happens for the nice guy over here, he goes into kind of the flight, freeze, fawn dimension of this sympathetic
Mm.
nervous system. And that is trying to keep a low profile, stay out of the limelight, not get the negative reaction, try to make everything better so we're trying to actually manipulate people and situations outside of us to have this smooth, calm life and to make sure we're liked and loved enough that we get some needs met. But it's all coming out of anxiety and shame. Over here with the asshole jerk, same thing. They're in fight, flight, freeze, sympathetic nervous system as well, but they're the fighters, right? They're the ones that overtly manipulate, control, aggressive to try to manage their anxiety and shame. So there is no tipping point between this. We have to rise up to another level. And that's what I teach in the book. And that's what I teach men in my programs is where we learn to self-soothe our anxiety. We learn to release our shame to save people. We learn to practice differentiation and integrity by asking, what do I want? What's important to me? And then we follow through on that, even if we have anxiety or resistance from people. We learn to set boundaries. We learn to ask for what we want. We learn to make our needs a priority. We learn a different way of functioning in the world that comes more out of what we'll just call our parasympathetic nervous system. We're calmer. We're not stressed. We're responding to life rather than reacting to it. We're responding to people rather than reacting to them. Kind of the Viktor Frankl quote of in that space between stimulus and response, we have a choice. There's a gap, and we
Mhm.
can respond or react.
Mm.
And he says, and in that is our growth and our freedom. So this is a process. And again, I think it all begins with finding safe people that we begin revealing ourselves to, like I was doing in that 12-step group, like I was doing in therapy, like I was doing in my men's group that I joined after that is learning to reveal ourselves goes a long way to moving us up that spectrum, not just finding some squishy place between wussy doormat and asshole jerk. So
Mhm.
it's not about just swinging from one end of the spectrum or finding a middle point. It's really about seeing ourselves in the world in a completely different way.
Yeah. 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 This is really interesting to think about the jerk and the nice guy almost being one and the same, but just on different ends of that spectrum. And I was in a relationship with someone and looking, when I was reading your book, looking back, I was recognizing, oh my goodness, this is this person. And I did recall experiences where I think he wanted to change, but it would come out like that jerk direction, which didn't work either. And so it's just interesting to think of it from this way and what is actually the desired space to step into. And I know how important it is, as you've described, to have safe people to connect with. And one of the elements being that a lot of nice guys feel more comfortable being around women and tend to have more
Yeah.
female friends and don't connect with men as much. And that it's so important, as you've described, the power of having safe men to build relationships with and to share with. Was that what your experience was like as well?
Yeah, I preach that pretty much nonstop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've worked with female therapists that were very helpful. And yeah, I got good stuff out of that, especially female therapists that liked men, that had a positive view of men. Because I grew up thinking all women kind of
Mm,
disliked men. So it's
yeah.
kind of good. It was good for me to get a female therapist that was supportive of my masculinity and my sexuality and me
Mm,
having boundaries. So that was really good. And I've been in a number of men's groups and men's programs and men's coaches. I've led, when I was in private practice in Seattle, I was leading 5 men's groups a week. I have a men's program now. It's got probably over 500 guys in it. We just had our first annual conference a couple weeks ago in Playa del Carmen, Mexico.
mm,
And the program I'm in personally has several intensives a year. And for me, I made a conscious decision probably about 30 years ago because I always sought out women as well. If I went to a luncheon, I'd go sit at the table that had the most women. If I went to a conference, I'd find the empty chairs next to women. And I made a conscious decision to shift that, where I would go
mm,
sit next to the men. And I got into men's groups and I started learning to connect with men. And that's changed my life in radical ways because when men are going to connect with women, we're seeking external validation from the women. They approve of us. So it's easy. We can have long conversations, blah, blah, blah. And, but it does nothing to challenge us, to sharpen us,
mm,
to, say iron sharpens iron. Most men have no kind of masculine initiation. We've never learned to face our fear of death, to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, to take on the challenging world of the masculine. I mean, that happened for 1.5 million years. Now, for about the last 60, 70 years, boys kind of grow up in the world of the feminine. And nowadays, if you look at a lot of young men, they're just kind of hanging out in the nursery. Everything gets pushed to them. The internet gets pushed to them. Their porn gets pushed to them. They can call Uber Eats and that gets pushed to them. They play their video games. They can smoke. They can drink. Nothing's ever required of them. And they're in a very feminine state. And primarily, and if they do have women in their life, they're just friends. So
yeah.
many men I work with go, "Oh, yeah, I got a lot of female friends," and they don't date any of them. They don't have sex with any of them, but they do get some degree of validation from their female friends.
Mhm.
And my theory is that boys have always primarily been raised by female caregivers. That's probably throughout all of human history. But at some point, usually around adolescence, the men took the boys out and initiated them into the world of the masculine. Now the boys had what the women wanted. And so the women came to them. But
Mhm.
because nowadays the young men don't have anything that the women want, they got to chase the women.
Mm.
And I think that's created a really disruptive way where most guys either never do, maybe they go to a dating boot camp or whatever, they know how to run game on women, but they're still just geeks with techniques. They still don't know how to be real with a woman because they've never been initiated in the masculine. And when a man's been initiated in the masculine, he has what the women want. Back in our primal times, it would have been the food, the furs, and the fucks. That's what the women were drawn to. But it's not that different now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the man has to be the provider, protector, caveman, all that stuff, but he's got to have something going on in his life. And one thing that I often share, usually if I share it with female coaches, they all have the same reaction. I remember I shared this with Chris Williamson on an interview, and he kind of went with it and kind of made it viral. But I said the feminine is highly attracted to a man who's comfortable in his own skin, knows where he's going, and looks like he's having a good time getting there.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I get that response from women every time. That man has something you want,
Yeah.
right? Something you're drawn to,
Mhm.
something that takes your life, your world, your experience somewhere new, a different plane. But if he's just playing World of Warcraft till 2 in the morning, ordering his food on Uber Eats, jerking off to porn, smoking reefers, what about that's going to attract you? What does he have that you want that's going to open you, that's going to light you up?
Mhm.
Nothing. But
Yeah.
yeah, comfortable in his own skin, meaning he likes himself. Maybe he gets to the gym, takes good care of himself, has an interesting life. He's living a purposeful life. He knows where he's going. He's getting things done, and he's having a good time. He's having fun. He has a sense of joy and a sense of spontaneity about him. That's
Mhm.
attractive. Like I said, every time I've told a woman coach that, I, as soon as I get to point
You're like,
one, I
yes.
see the woman start lighting up. I see the eyes start glowing. I see the flush of the, yes, we want that. And
Mhm.
so that really is my mission, is
Yeah.
trying to help men get that. And now not only does he have a life worth living, he's highly attractive to the feminine, not just women, but dogs, cats, babies, money, opportunity, adventure, all things feminine. Everything
Mhm.
that's not nailed down in the cosmos is drawn to that kind of masculine, energetic state.
Mhm.
And like I said, every time I tell a woman coach, they're all grinning ear to ear and lighting up, going, we want that. We want that. That's to your men listening. That's what turns the feminine on. That's what makes the feminine flush and have the fantasies. And I'll stop with that. But yeah, that's the ticket. And again, so many men don't have that because we're seeking the approval of women. We're hanging out in the nursery. We're monogamous to mom, or we're repressing our sexual energy. We're bringing that Madonna whore archetype, and it's all backwards. I said we got to learn to integrate that. Bring that dark sexual energy to the good women, rather than thinking, oh, if I bring that sexual self to a good woman who I want her approval, she'll disapprove of me. And then so the good women get robbed of that kind of energy that an integrated man can bring them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this. I was recently having a conversation with an incredible male friend of mine who is married to a dear friend of mine, and he was talking about attracting or being attracted to a spirited man is how he described it. Someone that's connected to their soul and their spirit, and
Yeah.
that is what makes a woman want to be with him. And it's so incredibly true. And he even described, he was like, we're a dying breed. Which is sad. And I hope that through the work that you do, and I mean, having this group of 500 plus men that you're supporting is going to make sure that the dying breed doesn't die.
And luckily, I'm
Yeah.
not the only one doing this. I've got
Mhm.
so many colleagues out there that are working with men and taking them deep and raising their consciousness and helping them be authentic and claim their power.
Mhm.
I'm optimistic, actually. I
Yeah.
think, talk about pendulum swings. I think we went from
Mhm.
the swing over here of what we call the patriarchy, where maybe the men had this ownership view of women in the world, swung the other way. Everything's toxic masculine. Everything about masculine is evil. We think maybe we'll find that middle. No, there's no middle ground between those two
Mhm.
toxic extremes. But I do see out there in the world more and more coaches, therapists, writers, just good men and women raising the level of men. And when we raise the level of men, it's a gift to women and world. And
Yeah.
I'm optimistic we're actually moving in a good direction that way.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, that's so much a part of the intention of having this space for men for me personally. And I feel so fortunate to be able to explore topics like this with experts like you. And
Now,
just
keep
in
doing it.
thinking,
Keep doing
and
it.
yeah, thank you. And thinking of closing here for someone that has made it to the very end, what is something like one thing that a man could start implementing right now today in their life to start raising themselves in this different direction?
A few things come to mind. The one top of my mind is start being your true self. Start being more honest and
Mm.
revealing. And again, you may need to seek out safe people to do that. Maybe doing that with your partner or your family member. It isn't where you start, but start being more open and revealing and authentic. Because I've got a couple books on dating. I learned to date in my late 40s when I got out in the dating world for the first time as an adult. And I encouragement, be yourself, be authentic. And guys always say, my mother tells me be myself. And people always say, be yourself, but that's not working so well. I'm still, I can't find a girlfriend. I can't talk to women. I said, how many people have you really let see the real you?
Mm.
Do you let you see the real you? And so the real you, going back to that guy who's comfortable in his own skin, that's a guy who's authentic, who
Mhm.
isn't hiding anything, who isn't keeping anything underground. Everything about him can be seen by the world. I call it nothing hidden, nothing half-assed. If you're going to do it in the open, don't hide it. Be you, be authentic. And so again, I think that typically has to begin with you seeking safe people, but start opening up and revealing the things about you don't want people to know.
Mm.
Maybe if you're in a relationship, tell your partner the truth about where you went to lunch instead of thinking, I just won't bring it up because I don't want to fight about it. because nice guys will just lie about the stupidest, littlest things because they don't want to have conflict. They don't want to start a fight.
Yeah.
So practice being more authentic, honest, and transparent.
Mm, incredible. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. Where can the wonderful men here connect with you further if they're resonating? I know I cannot recommend your book enough, but if they want to take it even further, where should they go?
Sure, two sites. One is my website, which is under construction. Just had a meeting with that today. drglover.com, drglover.com. That has my courses and workshops and books and podcasts and classes. And then my membership program is integrationnation.net. And that's a program that has several hundred worldwide men. We are actually today just started a new 72-hour enrollment. We do it every
Oh,
28
cool.
days, once a month. And integrationnation.net is building a worldwide community of men that want to level up to their best selves, live their best lives, and enjoy the kind of robust life and sexuality that we're talking about.
Incredible. Ooh, amazing. Dr. Robert, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad we got to connect, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on this show and share everything that you've
Thank you
been.
for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Naked Connection. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Trust me on this, your sex life and that special someone in your life will thank you for it. And if you really love the show, please take a moment and leave a 5-star review or a written review and let me know what you think. It would mean so much to me and this show. Until next time, happy connecting.